What's happening, everybody? It's Jay again, speaking to inspire, living to empower. I had the great opportunity of hearing a very inspiring message, a very practical message earlier today, and it was necessary for me to share it with you because if it was beneficial to me, I'm sure it will be beneficial to you. The message was about forgiveness. And there's so many things that we overlook on a daily basis because we are so bombarded with things to do. We have to-do lists that stretch from Asia to Antarctica and hardly enough time to get everything checked off on a daily basis. With that being said, a lot of things that we really need to pay attention to, such as our mental health, our emotional health, relationships with quality people, even taking time to examine certain cycles in our thinking, certain cycles in our behavior patterns, and really digging deep to discover the root of why we think the way we think, why we behave the way we behave, why do some of our relationships continue in certain cycles. We rarely take time to examine these things, and really this is what deserves our attention, family. With that being said, some of the points that I heard about forgiveness, some of the benefits of forgiveness, as well as some practical steps towards applying forgiveness to our daily life, I would like to share that with you. And this is not to overlook the reality and the fact that many of us have actually been hurt very deeply, that it can be very challenging to actually forgive someone. I don't want to be unsympathetic towards that reality. You have people who've been molested. You have people who've been raped. You have people who've been betrayed. You have people who've been abandoned. The list goes on, and the wounds are deep. However, the reality is that it's still better to forgive than to hold on to a grudge. Because most of the time when we think we're holding on to a grudge, that grudge is actually holding on to us, suffocating the life from us, keeping us bound, preventing us from experiencing life in its most healthiest and purest state, keeping us back from being able to serve more people because it's hindering us. So I'm just going to go ahead and share a few points from today's lesson. And the question that the speaker opened up with was this: is yesterday's pain worth today's energy? I want you to think about that. Is yesterday's pain worth today's energy? Every day we're given a new set, or should I say, we're given a new fresh amount of energy to be spent in that day. But sometimes we spend today's energy on yesterday's pain because we haven't learned how to forgive, how to move on. And again, that can be very challenging. Think about this question: is yesterday's pain worth today's energy? My answer is absolutely not. But I'm willing to admit also that moving on is not always easy. I need help. We need help. And I hope these tips are beneficial. Now, I would like to share this with you. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. We don't all of a sudden get amnesia when we choose to forgive somebody for something wrong they've done to us. However, it's a conscious decision to let it go, to no longer allow the other person's action or failure to act that has hurt us. We choose to no longer allow it to keep us from moving on, from moving forward. So again, forgiveness is not forgetting, it's choosing to let it go. In addition to letting it go, we also make a conscious choice not to hold it against the other person. Now, I'm not encouraging us to be foolish, and if a person steals from us, or if a person violates the rights of a child, that we should just allow the thief to sleep over or sleep over in our home when nobody's there, or allow the person who violated the rights of a child to babysit our little one. That's not what I'm saying. However, in addition to making wiser choices, even if that means not being around that person, we make a conscious decision not to hold it against that person. So when we see them, or if their name is brought up in a conversation, we're not flooded with so many negative emotions and memories that it paralyzes us or causes us to act out aggressively towards that individual or speak ill of that person. The next point that I want to share is unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Again, unforgiveness, that's kind of like me drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. If I'm drinking the poison and it's going into my body and my bloodstream, I'm the one that's going to suffer, not the other person. And that's what unforgiveness does to us mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. Also, I want to share with you some benefits about choosing to forgive. Now, studies show that some benefits of choosing to forgive is, one, it actually lowers blood pressure. 2, it reduces stress. 3, it reduces chronic pain. The last benefit I'm going to share with you, not saying that it's only 4, but I'm just sharing 4 with you now, and that is that it encourages a greater spiritual well-being. I like to think about it as unforgiveness is kind of like a knot being tied in a garden hose. Now, the purpose of the hose is to allow water to travel from one source to an outlet freely. But when there's a knot in the middle, the hose ceases to perform at its capacity. And that's how I see unforgiveness as. It's a blockage, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It is a blockage. Now, lastly, I want to share with you 3 practical steps on how we can actually put forgiveness into practice. Because again, there's levels to forgiveness. Not all wounds go as deep as others, and you may have experienced something that makes it extremely difficult for you to actually forgive somebody else. What I want to share with you is these 3 practical steps. Number 1, relinquish your right to get even. Don't make it your aim to get even with the other person. Let it go. Accept that it's not your job to get even with the person who hurt you. Number 2, focus on God's purpose for your life. Whatever we concentrate on maximizes. So even when we're concentrating on the fact that somebody has done us wrong, it maximizes in the brain, and the body then produces the symptoms and reactions according to the mind, because the body follows the mind. So if we focus on God's purpose for our life, which is an amazing, beautiful purpose, that will help us not to maximize the hurt and the anger and the resentment that was caused from somebody else's ignorance, negligence, and wrongdoing towards us. The last step that I would like to share with you is this: respond to evil with good. You may not be in a space to respond with good. You may not be around that person. However, a few ways you can start responding to good is, 1, if you're in the space with that person, by how you speak to them, by being intentional about doing a good deed for them even if you don't feel like it, just because. Also, by thinking positive about the person. Because if most of us would have been defined by some of our worst acts, come on, what would we really be? So even learning to think positive about the person, not saying we make excuses for other people's shortcomings, but we learn to acknowledge the fact that everybody is the sum of the seeds that's been planted into their minds, which means even the worst acts and the worst wrongdoers deserve some type of grace and forgiveness, because they too in some ways have been terribly misguided. It's just unfortunate that we were in their path to be hurt by them. So number 3 is don't return evil for good, but return good for evil. Listen, I'm speaking to inspire, living to empower. And I want what's best for you. I want what's best for me. So these are some practical tips on forgiveness. Again, this is just a short summary of an awesome message that I heard when I went to fellowship this Sabbath. And it was only right for me to share it with you. I want you to know you're beautiful, you're brilliant, you're talented, you're gorgeous, and you have something that deserves to be shared with the world. Don't compare yourself to others, because others just don't compare to you. This is Jay. Peace.